This is a sad day. It's the last race of the 2024-2025 cyclocross season. This is the 6th race in the Ibaraki cyclocross series in Toride, a little bit north of Tokyo. Pretty good sign up today. There were 2 ME4 groups of close to 50 people each. I think 46 showed up to the start line. I had the number 1 starting position, so I got to pick my spot on the starting line. It was a pretty fast start, right up to 1,000 watts or so here, and over 40 kilometers per hour. Some of the usual suspects jumping out to the lead here. I wanted to stay close to the front. There are a couple of features coming up that I thought could cause a bottleneck and really spread out the field a bit. A couple little bumps here, not quite the bottleneck yet. After this little ridge here, there's a tight turnaround. The dirt was a little loose, making it a little slippery. This one here was difficult. It was possible to ride up, but there were a lot of slips like that guy in front of me. So I was worried that if I wasn't in the top few spots, I might end up behind a bit of a pile up and lose some ground. So this is a really dry, flat, fast course. These bank turns here were pretty fast. And then there were these sort of packed dirt little trails and pin spots. So it's really probably the fastest course of the season, at least that I participated in. So you run into that same challenge, the balance of managing the early adrenaline, where it's easy to jump out in front and expend a lot of energy, but dig a hole for yourself for later in the race. Last year there ended up being a group of probably 6 people or so that was in the lead for the first half of the first lap or so. And then I found that I just wasn't able to keep up with the top few once they got a little bit of separation. So I figured today I would try to stay out in the first 2 or 3 spots for as long as I could, and I hoped that I would be on the front end when there was a split and we lost the rest of the group. So that was the thought, at least. I didn't want to control the tempo myself. I was worried that I would go too hard if I was alone in the front. As long as 1 or 2 people were sort of setting the pace in front of me, I thought that was probably a little bit safer. I don't like to be, I guess, a slave to the data on my my head unit computer during the race, but with the first lap being so fast sometimes, I do like to glance down and check my heart rate to make sure that I haven't sort of blown myself up to a point that I can't recover from. But here we're in the low 160s, which isn't that bad. You know, maybe I'd start getting worried if we were up in the 170s this early in the race. But not bad yet, despite the power surges. So here there's a long paved straightaway. And this is where last year the field of 6 or so broke up, and I wasn't able to get into the front group. So here I thought, all right, this one guy is jumping out. Let's see if I can stick with him I was really hoping to get up and get a little bit of a draft, but at the very least I wanted to just stay within range of him. I wasn't really looking back at this point, so I wasn't sure how close people were behind us. But again, I just hoped that with enough of a gap here and some of the features later on in the technical sections that could cause a little bit of a bottleneck, I was hoping that we would just be in a position to build on the lead a little bit. Last year, I remember this section of the course still being a bit wet for the early morning race. There were a couple of slips, but today was really dry dirt. Sometimes a little hard to get traction with the looseness of the dirt, but really not much of an issue. I had a file tread tire on the back wheel and an all-terrain tire on the front. Didn't have any problems. Both barriers here. And then this straightaway, maybe 200 or 300 meters or so, around this little, not quite a chicane I guess, but a little curve. And the finish line is here. So we started just before the finish line, so we did a full lap. Let's see how I did on this incline here. Looks like I managed fine. Still holding second. Heart rate's creeping up a little bit. It's still under 170. Also last year, I remember coming out of this banked turn and then having an immediate left-hand turn there that was not banked. So it was really difficult to manage the speed coming out of the banked turn without slipping on the left-hand turn that was not banked. So I think this year's course was a little safer in the sense that there weren't that many fast unbanked turns or off-camber turns. Even something like this was banked with a steep incline. It was hard to build up too much speed there. This was a little bit of a challenge here. The turn was a little tight, so I always lost a little bit of speed coming through there, a little bit of position. So I think overall my handling definitely has room for improvement. There are a lot of areas where I just wasn't that confident, slipping a little bit, couldn't maintain speed. But I don't think it was a huge factor today. I think relative to other people at this level, not necessarily any better or worse. I don't think the leader in front of me made up much ground in these technical sections. I didn't gain a lot of ground most of the time, so it just wasn't much of a factor. little slippery coming around this turn. There's some loose grass, I think, along with the loose dirt. It's another area where I had to manage the speed or the approach angle a little bit. And then this technical section here, a lot of winding curves with very loose dirt. Again, last year was a little wetter. It wasn't exactly slick, but a little firmer, maybe. Coming back to the straightaway here. Don't quite remember what happened. No, I didn't hold on to second place for that much longer. Power's down a little bit. Now back up over 300. It's hovering somewhere around my threshold of around 300 watts. So I tried to stay with this guy. He just came by with too much speed. My legs were fatigued enough where I didn't feel comfortable putting in that extra effort at this point. But I thought at very least if I could stick with number 2 here, who's in 3rd place, gives me a fighting chance for the top 3. Top 3 finishers today would advance to the next category, ME3 category. I'm not sure how that works at the end of the season. Usually the way it works is that you can only move up if you get a top 3 spot, or a top 2 spot maybe if it's a smaller field. And then you gain points based on your position in each race throughout the season. And if you finish below a certain threshold, you get relegated back down to the previous level, previous rank. So if you advance to a higher level in the last race of your season, I'm not sure if you then miss the threshold to stay in that level for the next season, or if you have to drop back down to the level you were in. Alright, so we're getting back to the end of the second lap here. Almost to the finish line. Passed by another guy here, so I'm in 5th place. My second lap was almost identical to the first lap in time. My heart rate now is just a smidge higher than it was after the first lap. After the first lap. Similar though, still below 170. A little fall there on this tight turn. I think I managed to slip by him here. Yeah, so back into 4th place for this tricky little turn. So I was definitely feeling it here. Yeah, it was when I was back in 5th place. It was a struggle to keep up with the guy just in front of me. So psychologically, seeing him fall, obviously you never like to see someone fall, but it did give me a little hope that I could stay close to 3rd place. That's 3rd place just in front of me now, in 4th. Heart rate's over 170 now. And it's hard to imagine on a course like this one I'll have much of any rest. A couple of technical sections where you don't have to be putting in a lot of power, but they're pretty short. And you're never far from a faster straightaway. So it looks like first and second are a couple of turns ahead of us. They were just in the screen a second ago. Didn't seem likely at this point that we would catch them unless one of them slipped and fell somewhere, which again was not that likely in a course like this. Third place started to get away from me a little bit here. Still not a bad place to be in. I think fifth place was out of the screen there because he was close enough behind me. I couldn't see him. But after that, there was a big gap before sixth place. So a little motivation with having someone right behind me to try to keep up with fourth place in front of me. Looked like he might be tiring a little bit here. But again, I'm well over 300 watts here, and not making up any ground at all. I'm jumping up to a harder effort. I just thought was going to kill my legs, so I think I was focused on just not losing any more ground. If I remember correctly, fifth place may have been right behind me here. He may have been trying to draft from me, or draft off of me. So there's first place, second place. They look like they probably have at least 30 seconds on us. Yeah, again, fifth place behind me wasn't in sight there, so he must be right behind me. And then here we have sixth and seventh all to the left. I thought I was pretty smooth with my dismounts and remounts with those barriers, but looks like I'm losing more ground to the guy in front of me, so he was definitely able to get back up to speed more quickly than I was. So there's the guy who had slipped earlier and was right on my tail through much of the last lap. So he's back into fourth place, and I think I'm fifth place here. Again, my heart rate is a smidge higher than after the last lap. It's over 170 now. It's looking at this point like both 4th and 3rd place are slipping away from me. About 5 minutes left in the race. I don't see anyone behind me yet. I guess there, just to the left, was 6th place. And I've certainly had people come from behind from that distance to pass me in other races, but it was still a relatively comfortable distance if I could manage to keep up a reasonably consistent speed. Just didn't look like I was going to catch up to the people in front of me. I'm not quite sure what my takeaways from this race are in this season. If I can manage a top 5 finish, that's something to be happy with. Out of 46 racers, can't complain with 5th. That's 10 races this season, a few top 10 finishes, a couple as high as 5th place or so. But I'm clearly not at the level of the guys who are taking the top 3 spots and moving up. Everything would have to go right in one of these races for me to get one of those top spots, it seems. So I don't know, maybe I can think of some adjustments to how I'm training. Maybe it's just a matter of volume. I'm just not riding as much as some people. I don't know, it's not the end of the world to not move up. It's still fun doing these races, competing for the top few spots. And maybe moving up will make it even harder to feel competitive if I'm just stuck in the bottom half or so in a higher category. But it's a challenge to work towards, and being competitive, I'd like to be able to do as well as I can, and I guess a bit of that may come with more experience, learning how to navigate these technical sections more smoothly, conserve more energy, learning when to use more energy on straightaways like this one, when it's worthwhile to use energy to stay in the top couple of spots at the beginning of a race, or to conserve and try to speed up as the race goes on and as other people tire. Looks like my 3rd lap was a little slower than the 1st and 2nd, but not by a huge margin. I guess it would probably be better to see those laps get faster and faster instead of slower. But much slower on the first couple of laps, and I probably wouldn't be in this 5th place position right now. So there we have 3rd and 4th place. So I was maybe a little closer than I realized. I guess they were probably losing steam here I had a surge over 500 watts or so. I thought maybe there's still a possibility where I stay close enough and one of them slipped somewhere and I can manage to sprint past them at the finish line. Certainly didn't want to give up. It wasn't looking that likely. They're out of sight now. They're probably up to the barriers. So really no chance at this point. Wasn't quite sure where the guy behind me was, but definitely didn't want to be overtaken at this point, so I still wasn't letting up. Smooth enough remount there. I think I managed one last little spike here. Not a very fast one or powerful one. I maybe topped 700 watts, and that's about it. Roll across the finish line there. Looking at the results, I was probably 20 or 30 seconds behind 4th place. 4th and 3rd finished just about even. And there's a big gap, I think, to 2nd and 1st place. So that's it. That's the end of the season for me. There's still a few more races around Japan that aren't really convenient for me, so I'll skip those. So thanks to everyone for a great season this year, and I'll be looking forward to the start of the next one in another 7 months or so.